Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thank you for joining me to visit Phillip and Monica in their studio in Wales. And I see a lot of familiar faces out there. Thank you. So I have represented Phillip and Monica since 2002. And we've had a great professional relationship. And I'm so happy that over the years, we've become very good personal friends as well. Phillip and Monica moved to Wales in 2015. And at the time, I told them that I would be there to visit. So it's taken me a while, but here I am on my way to Wales, and I'm bringing a lot of guests with me, which they might not have expected. In 2018, Phillip and Monica created a monumental, incredibly beautiful exhibition for the Canterbury Cathedral in Canterbury, England. And it took me about 5 seconds to know I had to be there. And it was truly one of the most thrilling experiences. It almost brings me to tears. It was that beautiful and that thrilling to be there and share it with them. So one thing I want to mention to you, because we are going to Wales, we knew that there could be some issues with internet. Phillip and Monica affectionately call Wales Little Siberia. So with great affection, they say that, but at the same time, if a cloud, the one thing I didn't realize, if there's a cloud over their home, it might interfere with their internet. So you may find from time to time that there's some vibration or some perhaps even loss on the screen. We hope that will not happen. So we're not counting on it happening, but if it does, just give it a moment and we'll be back again, because it's well worthwhile to visit them. And I'm happy that all of you will get to meet them if you haven't already, Phillip and Monica. And are you there?
Sandra, I think Daniel needs to open up our video. We've constantly said, it says unable to open the video.
There.
Okay, so Daniel.
There we are.
Oh, there they are. Hello. So I'm doing all this.
I'm just beginning.
I'm so glad to see you, and I'm so happy to introduce you to our audience from all over the world, Phillip and Monica. People are joining to see you. And I don't know if you heard, I just gave a short introduction. And I think that I should just turn it over to you. I'm so excited that I've come to Wales for the first time. And as I mentioned, sorry it took so long, but I am here with my friends.
Wonderful. Well, hello, Sandy. Welcome to everybody. And we see Sandy, and you represent all the people we can't see, but we can see you. You're here with us in Wales, Little Siberia. It's a beautiful place where we live. And we've always been very lucky. We've always thought the journey was important, and we've been very lucky to have studios that are really beautiful, aesthetically beautiful. We started in Switzerland. We were 20 years in Switzerland, and then we moved to Paris, smack center Paris. And Sandy, you visited us there, didn't you, in the Viaduc des Arts? And that is old railway viaduct. And it's just down from the Place de la Bastille, really smack in the center of the city, and the apartment. So we would walk between the apartment and the studio. We just had 10 minutes walk. And it was 15 for all your 3 years. And then we had the itch, and we moved to Wales. And the people ask us, why Wales? It's, you know, we've been in the French part of the world for 35 years. And Phillip said, okay, let's go somewhere where everybody speaks English. Of course, the joke is our assistants are French, and all we do is speak French all day long. But so here we are in a place that is you know, pardon.
No, go on.
So here we are in a place from a 2-bedroom apartment in a block in Paris. We are in the middle of the countryside. We have 8 acres, too many barns, animals, sheep out the window, beautiful view over the hills. And I just felt in Paris, the energy of the city was getting to me. And here, you know, I can go and feed the donkeys in my pajama. Nobody's going to mind. It's perfect.
Why Wales? Like, I know you want to leave Paris, but what made you decide on Wales?
I think because we'd lost our nut and we're out of our minds.
Okay.
That's good enough for you.
Okay. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know more right now. Okay.
Always done little crazy things, but we've always, I think each studio has been more beautiful than the other. So, you know, and we said, okay, let's do a third act.
We have had 2 months of almost nonstop sunshine. Whether that's because of external circumstances that we don't understand, I don't know, but it's been a beautiful spring here. We're going to go now to a first video clip in which we'll give you a little bit of a entranceway to the studio and a little tour of the hot shop and sort of working area, a bit of which you see behind us here. And the studio itself was an old tractor shed, kind of a 1950s steel structure, open-faced with an arched roof and what they call here a Dutch barn. And we essentially built a new building inside that space, but preserving that space architecturally in the external structure. And in fact, we actually got an award from the Welsh government in 2017, an architectural award for the best farmyard barn conversion. So that was a kind of a sweet touch. Now, when you see the pan of the view and then you come in the door to the studio and you'll get a sweep of the studio, we want you especially to notice the floor, because the floor is in wood. You can see it behind us. It's beautiful birch wood. And people ask, how can you possibly have a hot glass studio with a wood floor? Well, we always have. We had one in Switzerland, we had a beautiful one in Paris, and we have one here. And we didn't think we could do it here because it's a much bigger space and we thought it would be too expensive. And then we discovered there's a company that makes floors for ballet, theaters, gymnasiums, theaters, and so forth. And when they do a new floor, like for a school, they take up the old floor. So to make a long story short, our floor covering the almost 5,000 square feet of our studio, except the cold shop, is an old basketball court from Scotland. Mm-hmm. And we mention this also because throughout this talk, I think you'll see that we're very much it's very much about the process and the journey, as well as what we hope are the beautiful results. And so, you know, having a wood floor, which is gentle on your feet and your legs, to say nothing of the aesthetics visually in the workspace where you spend your day, all of that's always been very important to us. And we hope some of that comes through in this talk. So Daniel, I think we're ready to go for the first riff.
Excellent. Beautiful.
I have to say something.
Beautiful. I can't believe the view that you have from your studio. I have a question I'd like to ask. How close is your closest neighbor?
Well, there we have actually two neighbors. One you can see out this window up on the hill, and the other ones are down there about 500 meters. Is that about right?
Yeah.
And they're lovely. I mean, they pop in and I go and pirate the internet people down there because they have fiber optic and we have definitely not fiber optic.
We found that out. And
Anyway.
how do they feel about having a glass blowing studio nearby?
Well,
Oh, yeah, go
What do
ahead.
you add to the community, I guess? What do you
well,
add
what's
to the?
interesting is we had no criteria coming here other than the beauty, the rural nature of it, not crowded. We were looking to be remote. And then once we got here, we discovered that in fact, we moved to quite an unusual community. There's a great many people in the arts and filmmakers, authors, painters, sculptors, musicians. There's a music festival at the end of August every year that's quite renowned. And none of this we knew.
And
So
the anthropologist.
That reminds me. Is that when you have your dance party? I know you have a dance party once a year, isn't that true?
we have an annual dance party.
Biannual.
Monica's been insisting that it's biannual, and
It takes about 3
I think
weeks
this year
to
we
get
won't
ready.
have a lot of choice. Who knows?
But people come from all over the place and it's really fun. Anyway,
Right there behind us.
yeah, the whole studio is taken over by live band. Anyway, it's really fun. Anyway,
Excellent.
just showing you the video with the donkeys, and the donkeys were a birthday present from Phillip actually a couple of years ago. And it's mother and daughter. The daughter is born here. We witnessed the birth of it. And we have only one dog, but the dog tends to show up in each window because he also is a sacred animal, mascot of the place. Anyway, so that much gives you a little bit idea of how it looks here. And now about the work, the next segment of the video will show you the making of a boat. And we've started making boats a bit over 10 years ago. And it was, the circumstances were a little strange. We had a fire in the studio in Paris. The studio was under construction for almost a year. We started again, the recession hit, and boom, zero. And we used the time to develop new work, and that's when we started with the boats. And the boats are probably our most sort of personal work, because we are, in a way, we are nomads. I mean, Philip is American, I'm Swiss, we live in Wales, we lived in Paris, we lived in French part, my mother's Italian, there was a lot. Philip, by the way, he went to Sweden for 6 months, and he has never been back to the US, so,
Well, I
Is that where you met when you were in Sweden? Is that where you actually met?
Yeah. Anyway, so
41 years ago.
41.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I'll say.
To live and work together, that's amazing.
There's a medal for that one. So we agree on that one. Anyway, so the boats, and as I said, they're quite personal, and in a way boats have been a big part of our lives. Philip comes from a family of sailing. My father was a sailor, my brother was a sailor, and we've always been quite close to water and sailing. And boats are about journey and coming from one place to another and discovering new shores and settling and unsettling and all of that. And the other thing also, in the boats, the cargo, we used to be amphorae, and you put in gold, grains, water, oil, wine, whatever, and they become sort of a reference to what you take with you. Also, they become sort of symbolic. What you pack when you go on a boat, what's important. So you can put anything that's really important, that's essentially put on a boat, and then you go on your journey, and you don't necessarily know where you're going to end up. And so then the boats became a little more personal in the sense of figurative as abstract humans in a way, creatures. And you can see in the boat that they are used in Kamo technique. You do that?
No, go ahead.
I felt a little lost.
That's
Phillip
okay.
takes over.
Well,
Come on, Phillip takes over. Oh, I see.
Monica was explaining that the content of these boats is sort of morphed both into abstraction, but more also into humanoid shapes, sort of abstract reference to people voyaging. And the next clip we're going to show you is, I should say, we are not filmmakers, but over the course of this week, we made, I think, over 25 or 30 little clips to reduce this down into what you're seeing. And in this next clip, we've tried to show, in a sense, some of the repetition that goes into making something. As every glassblower knows, there's an enormous amount of repetition in glass making. It's a universal language, and if someone from Moscow goes to blow glass with somebody in Texas, they'll be able to work together because the rules are kind of universal. And there's a repetition, and it's almost like a yogic practice. And in our boats, we've come to a place where the principal technique being used is a process called incalmo, which is an ancient Italian technique where you blow hot 2 or more parts and join them together hot to actually complete the piece. So this next little clip tries to demonstrate that together with—
You hear the dog.
The other,
I can hear the dog.
I hope it's okay. But anyway.
Fine, it's fine. We all love pets.
Okay. And hopefully you get a sense also of the degree to which it's a bit of a ballet, and you need an amazing amount of coordination between the different people in this repetitive process.
And I would like to add here, we have 2 wonderful assistants,
Yes.
Philomène and Léon. They're both French, and they're actually quarantined with us here, so we can go on working. So you'll see them in the video, and it's just great. And it's a very intimate, it's an intimate business to blow glass and work together here. And
When you describe it as a ballet, that's
Yes.
so accurate. It really is like a ballet, and the fine tuning, definitely, it's beautiful to watch. So now
Okay.
we can take a look.
Shall we? It is,
Yes.
Yeah.
and about the
No, because it's not time. It's way too soon.
Perfect. Let me have a look.
That boat is a killer. It's beautiful. The boat that you just finished, it's now completed, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yep,
It's beautiful. Just beautiful.
thank you. Yeah,
Well,
do you want to do,
about
Sandra, you had a question earlier about the nature of our being here and able to work.
Yes, yes. You know, I was wondering, with COVID, how has it changed what you do? Now, you did mention that your assistants are quarantined with you, that you have the luxury of having the property and they're living with you. So that means you can continue to work. Is that
That's
right?
Yes,
That's right. Yeah, we're very lucky because we have a very large house, so they took over the top floor, and there's enough space that you don't step on each other's toes, and they're very nice people.
We've actually been quarantined here on the property for 8 weeks now. And, and because we're all in here together, we can go on blowing glass. What happens?
And I don't know what it's like. How far away is the town where you shop, where you get your food, or do you have groceries delivered?
4 miles.
4 miles?
Yeah. Whatever.
And does everyone leave your home, or do you have a designated shopper? How does that work? Okay.
I'm too old. They don't let me out.
They won't let you out now? You're not that old, Philip. I saw you look pretty cool blowing glass. You still have what it takes to blow. So there you go.
Well, there's something.
You get points.
Oh my goodness. I've seen you blow glass on a number of occasions, and you don't look much different now. So that's cool. That's very good.
How many points can I give you?
So I love the boat. Do you have some more pieces there
Yes,
Yeah.
we have
in the
more,
studio?
We're going to show you.
we have more
Okay,
pieces. And the
excellent.
boats, as you can see, the pieces in the boat, they're sort of like creatures, and they actually have landed in a manner of speaking, and they become sort of individuals, and that's our newest.
Just to interrupt, what Monica means is that we've taken this concept, as you saw there, and expanded it out into larger pieces.
You're talking about the boat? You're talking about the individual pieces in the
Yeah.
boat. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they become, we call them
Novi
novi
species.
species.
I'm so glad you did that because I have a tough time saying it as well.
It's maybe a little over the top.
Well, it's sort of new creatures, and that also gives the viewer the liberty to put some self-interpretation in it, because they become different in personalities. Some are fat, some are funny, some are silly, some are very elaborate and fancy, and so they're sort of representative a little bit of beings, maybe people, maybe not people, but beings in their own way. And
That's probably how people are attracted to them. They're attracted to their personalities. Like more so, I guess they're attracted to the color because you use beautiful color, but I would think the personality of the glass.
And we show a lot of them, at least visually. I mean, each one stands alone, but we often show them in groups, and they tend to sell in groups because they do talk to each other. It somehow ramps up the power of the story.
Yeah, there's a dialogue going on among the pieces, and which is nice, and people react to that.
We haven't said one thing that we should say. which is that the Italian cutting technique, battuto, which you saw a little bit of with Philomene and Leon in the last clip, where they were actually cutting the pieces that went into the boat. And as you know, all of our work is cut. And
I have a cut piece behind me.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, right on. And we've been cutting pieces in this battuto Italian cutting technique, I think now for over 25 years. And I guess you'd have to say that Baldwin Guggisberg don't like shiny, because we do cut everything. And here again, 2 points about, there's something very satisfying about cutting glass, much the way about blowing glass. There's this repetition. There's this yogic mantra of practice, which I think is probably the case in almost all craft. But it draws you, and almost all of our assistants have come to us to work for us in hot glass. But they end up doing hot glass and cold glass and loving both. And so you have in our studio, on one side, you've got this hot shop, which is a whole métier in itself with a furnace of 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. And 10 feet away on the other side of the wall, you have a cold shop and you're cutting the glass cold with diamond wheels.
It complements each other
Somehow
quite well.
they complement each other, and you're back and forth, back and forth.
And it's also, you know, when you're cutting, you're doing it on your own. So you're sort of in direct contact, just you focusing on a piece. When you're blowing glass, it's always, there's several hands and
Collaborative.
bodies working on it.
Collaborative. When you cut glass, how easy is it to lose the piece when you're cutting? I mean, you're laughing. No, okay, fine. I thought so. I thought so.
Well, the more complicated the piece,
Yes.
the higher the risk that the very last 1 or 2 cuts, you lose the piece.
That's sad.
I mean, there's
I
so
get
many
it.
pieces. There's a piece up on the shelf up there. You can't see it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. The last cut was a hole.
It's just,
You know, it just happens. And
And
that's why it's also good not to get too attached when you're actually doing this kind of work, because it may just happens.
the master we worked under in Sweden, Vilke Adolfsson, okay, and he was a beautiful master, and he would occasionally say, oh, or the piece would fall or break or something. He'd say, oh, that one was too beautiful. You simply had no right to keep it.
Something.
So anyway, we should.
I want to tell something more about the cutting. I think
Oh,
about
yes.
I just would like to add something about the cutting in that species novi. They are not, they're not overlays. So it's you're cutting directly onto the color, and we're trying to be very careful not to over decorate it, but that the cut really, you know, enhances the shape and the personality of the piece.
So
rather
maybe
than
you could explain that, Monica. Can you explain that about you blow your first color, then you blow the second color? That's what I want you to explain.
You do it.
Go ahead.
Well, you know, the piece like you have behind you
Yes.
involves, you have 3 different colors in that piece, but it actually involves 8 layers of glass,
Okay.
because you have color, clear glass,
Oh,
clear
okay, of
glass,
course.
and color, et cetera, et cetera. But in this new work, there may be 2 colors. In other words, one part is one color, the other part is another color joined together. But they're just one color in each part. So you're not cutting through color as you make the piece. So you're not getting, the only pattern you're getting is the cut. Whereas in your piece, you have pattern as if it were a painting with different colors. Does that make sense?
Yes. Does that make it more difficult, the fact that it's only one color that you're cutting into, or doesn't make any difference?
It's more difficult. It's just different. It's just a different, you want a different result, so you have a different approach.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. All right, where are we?
We are, I think we should
I
go
think
to
you-
probably the video
You have some images.
of the gallery.
Well,
We're ready to,
I think, we could put up some images of the species nova and let us share them with our audience or with,
I'll show the
Okay.
gallery.
okay? All right, so Daniel, can you put up the species nova?
you
And,
have boats in there as well.
oh, okay, sorry.
That's
Oh,
all
the
right.
boats, of course. Let's look at the boats. Beautiful. So that's the boat that we saw, which is gorgeous. Beautiful.
He's using the.
I love that. I'm a color person. I love that.
No.
So what I'd like to say, so that everyone knows, those images of the pieces that we just saw are in Monica and Philip's studio, and those are all available pieces that we just looked at, aren't they?
They are indeed.
Pieces, they are?
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. I have a favorite or two.
Okay, good, good. So we're going to,
Gallery too.
yeah. No, don't leave that. Don't worry about that. Go to the monuments.
Well, we haven't done the studio shot, the gallery shot.
It's not important, I don't think, because she's already shown the pictures.
But you could show them if you want. Oh, you do your order, whatever you're more comfortable.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Oh, I see. I forgot this. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Can you hand? Are you ready?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting to see them that way, one piece moving to another, as opposed to seeing them individually, the way
Yeah.
we presented them. Beautiful.
Hopefully, yeah, anyway. So, but we had 2 years ago, we had an exhibition at Canterbury Cathedral, and two of the trustees from the Glass Museum in Ebeltoft came to see us. And we got an invitation for a show at the Ebeltoft Museum, which was supposed to open in April, but now it's supposed to open in June, and we'll see, on verra. And the exhibition is called Walking in the Void, and it will be composed of 12 installations. And the monoliths, the pieces we're going to show you next, are an important part of it. There will be sort of the center, it's almost like testaments. How you say testaments?
They're witnesses
Witnesses, right.
to what we're
Testaments.
trying to do in the exhibition.
And they're very much about a presence. They're quite tall, they're large, and we have not much decoration. We really focused on the color, the shape, and the presence. That's the most important part in these pieces for me and for us.
Yeah, as we were saying earlier, our work is so much about color, but this is a definite sort of shift in that we've tried to reduce the pieces to minimal content in that sense. So there's really only 3 colors involved, and principally 2, black, red, and a little bit of gray. And the pieces, as you'll see, they're very, as forms, they're very extravagant. They're very exaggerated, if you will, some of them. And they're over a meter tall, so you can leave them on the floor and they still have presence. But we can, I think we might be good if we go to the next clip, which shows a little bit the making of them and what they look like. It's good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good, very steady, 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 steady. Great, up you come, good. Very nice, okay. Go. The flash game, good.
Beautiful. These are, congratulations. Congratulations. They're very beautiful. Can you hear me? Very
Yeah.
powerful. You know, there's just one little thing I want to say aside. I forgot to mention when we got started to everyone that there is, at the end of our visit, there is going to be a Q&A where people can ask questions to you and Monica directly, because I'm getting a few questions on the screen, and I just want people to know that at the end they can ask their questions directly to you. But going back to those pieces, which are really wow pieces, they're beautiful and strong. How are you feeling about that? How do you feel about that direction?
We love them. We
Yeah.
very much, and we're looking forward to, you know, continuing to develop that. Because there's, as always with these things, there's endless possibilities. But it is size is an interesting issue. Certain things are amplified with size, and sometimes it's an illusion. But we think in this case that they've achieved a sort of power relative to size, and that also relates to their simplicity comparatively.
Yeah, I think
Actually very simple in design, aren't they? Very simple.
Yeah. But you know, sometimes when things are simple, you have to be very careful that, you know, simple, like try to make a cylinder or a sphere. If it's not perfect, you'll see it. The simpler it is, sometimes, you know, the more concentration it takes to just keep it really tight, not get carried away and trying to flourish it.
How did you really get an idea of the scale? Because you mentioned that those pieces can be freestanding, they can sit on the floor. How tall are they?
Well,
What is the range?
Between a meter and 1.20 meters. Yeah, and in fact, a few of them were shown at the Ringling College of Art and Design in Florida, and we asked them to present them on the floor with just a white surface, and it looked great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sandy, and
Yes.
I think that I'm just looking through the notes here. Oh yes, you were going to show the pictures of the monoliths, right? Yeah.
Of the monolith.
There are some.
Yeah.
Yes, the monoliths. Yes, that's what. Sorry, I couldn't hear you that time. Okay. And the frames. So they're simple and they're exquisite to my eye. I love the new monoliths. We're also going to move now. The one series of yours that we really didn't focus on are the frames, and that's going to come up now. May I show some of those frames?
I love that.
I have a frame.
It looks great.
I have to tell you, I've had that frame for a number of years now, and I love it. Yeah, I get so much pleasure, so thank you. It's one of my favorite pieces. Thank you.
We're very happy you have it.
Sandy, I think you mentioned at the beginning about having gone to Canterbury Cathedral. What you did not mention is that not only did you come to Canterbury Cathedral, but that the Sandra Ainsley Gallery also participated as one of many sponsors who helped underwrite that show, and we just wanted to point that out.
That was it.
And I think that I think we're at a point where it'd be good now, we could actually go on to the little final video clip about Canterbury, and we just say a word about that because it does relate to a lot of the direction that our work has been going in the last couple of years. And that exhibition was technically designed, we were invited to do that as part of the 100-year commemoration of the end of the First World War. And indeed, part of the agreement was we had to have an installation that specifically addressed that fact, which is the little video clip you're about to see. But it ended up being 10 installations which wove a story around the history of the cathedral, the First World War, but especially the 100 years since the First World War, and many of the often troubling issues that have confronted global society since that war. And the actual piece you're going to see, which is 100 large amphora that were blown for us at a factory in Switzerland, are meant to commemorate each one of those 100 years since the war. And I suppose that exhibition represented a bit of a turning point in our careers, in the sense that our work is more and more socially and politically informed. And this next exhibition we're going to do in Ebeltoft, Walking into the Void, also has that in it, while we hope never losing sight of our deep attachment to beauty.
Yes, because I think we're firm believers that you can express problems or social issues or, you know, your personal concerns even through beauty, even if what you're trying to say is not necessarily all positive, but you can express it through beauty. And I think it goes through sentiments and it will be more powerful. And the exhibition in Canterbury was called Under an Equal Sky. And the exhibition in Ebeltoft will be Walking in the Void. So you can already hear a little bit through the titles where we're going. And I think in Canterbury, what we wanted to point out is also, don't always remember, learn from remembering, but bring it into the future, make it a better future.
Well, that exhibition in Canterbury was incredibly powerful. When I walked into the cathedral, it literally took my breath away. I was speechless. And I was in Canterbury for, I think, 4 or 5 days. But I mean, every day I went back. I went back to see the exhibition. And I spoke to people who were seeing the exhibition. You know, I was a normal tourist with them. And people were just so taken by the beauty and by the environment and what you were trying to say.
I think we had a lot of comments from, it's all on a volunteer basis in Canterbury. So the volunteers are in the cathedral, helping with tourists, with visitors, answering questions and leading groups. So they gave us some of the remarks that they heard. And one of my favorite is from a little boy who said, "The sky is crying." I mean, if the sky is crying, I mean, it's just gives me goosebumps hearing that. And we had incredibly touching remarks from people coming to us because they were moved. And, you know, you go under there and you look up and yeah, it was.
Well, on that note, maybe we should
let's show
look
the
at
clip.
look at
Yes. I think we're going to pull up Canterbury now. Right? Great.
One, two, three. But if we
Put it down now?
we're right here.
Put it down steady together. Okay.
Bravo. That is quite remarkable. Beautiful. I wish everyone could have the same scope of it as I saw.
We'd like to find a home for that piece, but it's not an easy
Where is it now, Philip? Where is that piece?
storage container.
Oh, how sad. All right, well, we're making an announcement. We're looking for a home for a monumental piece.
I mean,
Beautiful.
it will find a home.
It will. I'm sure it will. Well, do you have any, this has been delightful. Do you have anything else you would like to talk about or tell us about?
We were just going to conclude. I think there are 6 little pictures left, and we just wanted to flash on those. One of them is there's 6 pictures. So,
Yes.
you know, our work is increasingly about these kinds of larger scale pieces and commissions and installations.
Installations, of course.
One of the first major installation scale things that we did was for through you, an installation in Canada, and it's a very beautiful piece, and we'd like to share that. And the second one is a piece that was in Canterbury Cathedral and has now gone to the Swedish
Law, the head office of the Swedish Law Society in Stockholm.
And the third piece, which is where we will end this, is a piece called The Blue Gateway, which we actually made about 15 years ago. And it's always been one of our favorite pieces. And as sometimes is the case, sometimes your favorite pieces go out the door immediately, and sometimes they don't. And we still have this piece right here in our studio. And we're actually going to include this piece in the Ebeltoft show because it resonates so powerfully with today and what we're all going through. Monica and I feel that wanting to look at the crisis we're in around the globe, that just maybe this is a positive moment, and a moment when we're all taking the time to reflect, and we are at a bit of a gateway, and when we get through this crisis, we'll have a rethink about whatever the new normal is and how we're proceeding on planet Earth. So if you maybe just keep that in mind on that last slide, we'll let the slides run and won't say a word. Is that?
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I know that that's more of a direction, or that's really a direction you would like to go, isn't it? To do more commission work and work one-on-one with clients.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. While not giving up all the other things that you've seen.
No, I know, but I know that that's a direction. I mean, obviously these large scale projects that you've done has led you in that direction, but your intimate objects are exquisite. They really are.
And it's also nice when you do a commission, you do it for a specific place, you know where to go. So that plays into design process and the thinking about it all ahead of time. And the other word, okay, also Canterbury, of course, but if we do species novae, we're doing objects, but we don't know the context they will be in the end. When you do a commission, you know that, which is always an extra challenge and satisfactory part of it.
So I think we've done the ballpark. And
Done great. You've done wonderful. I want to thank you so much. I'm sure that everyone enjoyed the visit as much as I did. And what I'd like to do now is introduce Daniel to you, Daniel Ainsley, who's going to look after the Q&A. So if you have questions, please, the lines are free and you can speak to Monica or to Philip. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Phillip and Monica. It was a wonderful visit. It was so nice to be able to see your studio And I also have the pleasure of living with one of your pieces, which brings me much joy every time I walk by it. So what we're going to do is we are going to open this up for questions for Phillip and Monica. If you have a question, you want to tap on the blue hand at the bottom of your screen. I will call upon you and I will unmute you and you can ask Phillip and Monica a question. So our first question is going to come from Lindsay.
Perfect.
Lindsay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good afternoon, Sandra and Daniel. And Phillip and Monica, what an absolute pleasure, a treat, a delight to not only see you again, but to visit your studio. I had the honor of visiting you in your Paris studio as well as at Sandra's gallery when you were in town. So my question is this: when you do the patterning on the outside of the pieces, I was interested in knowing how you achieve that effect, how you make that design, and how you do the concept of the designs. Because I have a feeling, and I don't know this for a fact, but I have a feeling that they are carved out somehow after they're blown. Could you just elaborate a little bit, if you would? Thank you.
Well, the piece is blown and it's when it comes on out of the annealer the following day, it's cold. And then of course it is cut when it's cold. And we do color the outside. So when there's precise patterns and they have to be very, very linear or, you know, very precise, we color the piece and then we sort of structure it with other lines. So when you cut it, you can follow the lines and you have a sort of a blueprint. How
Which,
you do
when
it.
Monica says color it, we take a paint pen and actually draw the pattern on the piece.
Right.
When you're right, you cut through the glass on a lathe with a diamond wheel.
I don't know if you noticed one of the videos where you go to the coat shop where Philomene and Leon are cutting. You can see a shelf where there are lots of wheels. We have about 15 different wheels.
Yes, I did see that.
And those are the ones you put on the lace and, you know, you carve into glass.
Yeah, it's gone.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. Our next question comes from Steve. Steve,
Sure.
go ahead.
Hi, Steve.
Hello, Steve. Oh,
There we go. Sorry, we were on mute. It's Karen, guys. How are you?
hello. Nice
Hi,
to hear.
Karen.
Hi, Steve is here with me. And as always, it's just wonderful to be with you, even remotely, and be as amazed as we always are at the constant innovation and growth and expansion of what you do. So thank you for that. My question is, on the monoliths, you chose, and I know the pieces are large, you chose to balance the top into the bottom rather than connecting them. Is that because of a physical limitation, or is there another reason that you did that?
The reason for that is essentially that the pieces arrived at a size that was simply not possible to make within the confines of our studio if we were to do it as a single incolumno piece. We'd literally have to, you know, go out to Seattle or something where you would have a larger installation, which at this stage of our lives we certainly don't want to do. So the way to get around that was in effect we haven't changed the aesthetic idea, but by doing it in two parts and fitting the top part into the bottom part, we can make it as two separate pieces and then put them together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then does that make balancing easier or harder?
Well, they are, you know, as we said in the talk, they are big, they are extravagant. Now the bottoms are quite heavy. So in most cases, they're pretty stable. A couple of them, they're less stable because they have a narrow base. so you're trading off between aesthetic and maybe needing museum glue when you put it down, when you place it in a place you like so that someone's not going to elbow it. But that risk also exists with smaller pieces as well. I don't think they have more risk as a result of the way they're made.
But I also think that the fact that they're two parts, they're different than the species novae which are in Calmo. I mean, you do have a different feel around the pieces, species novae, because they're done in two parts.
Yeah. In effect, it allows us more liberty in the making process, because the Encalmo process is, I mean, we didn't show you, the pieces you saw in the presentation were little pieces that were going into the boats. The bigger novae species pieces,
They are up to 80 centimeters.
they're intense for old guys like us.
Well, you have some.
Yeah, we do. We do. Oh, that was lovely. Thank you. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our next question comes from, I believe, an old friend of yours, Jonathan.
A very dear old friend and assistant.
Aloha, Phillip. Aloha, Monica.
Hi, Jonathan.
It's really nice to see you today. I feel blessed to be part of a lineage of people that have gotten to work with you and, glass blowing going back to 50 BC. And I'm just curious to hear a little bit about you talking about your place in the history of glass, and how do you see that from, if you zoom out, or do you, when you zoom out?
Okay. I think you're asking us how do we see ourselves relative to the larger world of glass, which dates from if we say modern glass, studio glass, dating from the early 60s till now? Is that...
Yeah, a little bit of both. For me, it's just interesting to be part of contemporary sculpture working with glass, but also the history of glass making, and feeling some level of responsibility for this craft and passing it on. And I know you've had so many opportunities to educate and teach people. So I'm just curious how that.
Well, I would say that I think that our work honors as deeply as possible the tradition of blown glass. Everything we've done has always been around blown glass. And I noticed in the obituary for Laura de Santillana, who tragically died last fall, that it mentioned how she had remained loyal throughout her incredible career to blown glass. And so I think we feel a very special commitment to that. So that even though our work, some of the things in Canterbury were
Blown by other people.
Of course, blown by other people and all of that, but almost everywhere you look with everything we've done, with very few exceptions, is devoted around blown glass. And I suppose I would say that I see us in that context with the deepest respect for that tradition.
And I think also we have used blown glass in, for design work, where we do it for design for other people. We used it in the beginning when we did our own design production and, limited editions. And if you see, we have done a lot of blown glass and different representation and in the intentions of blown glass.
Yeah.
We have done, but I think one of the things we've always done new stuff. We've always built on what we have done before and moved on and moved on and moved on. We've never sort of stuck with one thing and sort of developed just one thing and kept it and built on that. We've always built something and then built onto that and moved on. But if you look at our work, you actually can see a trajectory, and it's all with blown glass.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we've answered your full question, but I hope we've got a stab at it. Is that
It's beautiful.
And there's one little thing I like to say, and that's really not necessarily just to us, but I think all the people who have worked with us, the assistants who've worked with us over the last, almost 40 years, I think 90% of them are still working with glass.
as in yourself, dear sir?
And we're very blessed by that. We're
Yeah,
grateful.
I'm so glad Monica said that. Our assistants and our relationship to our assistants over all this time has been one of the most joyful elements of the whole story.
It is a field of relationships, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
With all of us, it's about the relationship.
Absolutely.
Daniel, are you there?
Yes, I am. So our next question comes from Andy. Andy, oops. Andy, go ahead. You there, Andy? Andy, your mic is open. I guess we won't be able to connect with Andy. So that is all the questions, although David typed in, and David would like to know how the design process works. Do both of you design the pieces? Does Monica design, and do you blow the pieces, Philip? How exactly do you do that?
It's organic and collaborative, often spontaneous, sometimes highly carefully pre-thought through. And I don't know if you can see in the back, but there's lots of drawings and stuff. I can barely sign my name, so anything that goes on paper is thankfully and beautifully done by Monica. Sometimes it's imagined at the end of the blowpipe. It's very organic, and Monica and I have, I think maybe I can say that we're rather proud of the fact that we don't go who did this and who did that. We made a decision a long time ago that we were a team. So that's not always easy, but it is. And of course, some things are more Monica and some things are more Philip, but almost always we inform each other and hopefully come up with a better result.
Yep, I have nothing to add.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, if there aren't any other questions, then I would like to again thank you. It was a wonderful afternoon with you. Mind you, I guess it's evening. We started at 6 o'clock your time in Wales. And during your talk here in Toronto, at least we had a hailstorm. So, it's wonderful that we could all be together. Thank you all for joining us today. And I really can't tell you how much I enjoyed visiting you, Philip and Monica. And for our guests who are online, we will be sending you out some information shortly about our next upcoming tour. So everyone have a safe and a healthy day. And until we meet again, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank
as
you
well.
to everybody. Daniel, too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.